Welcome to Two Gals and a Glass Half Full. Always got to make sure I say that right. I've said it wrong before. But we are back and we are here in the month of May talking about mental health. And last week we got an awesome interview with Erin, a mental health counselor. And I just found that was so helpful and such a great conversation. So we want to continue that conversation, but first, Dr. Jess, what do you have in your cup today?
Well, Dr. Bobbie, it is not super hot today in May in Florida. There's like a chill, it's like 65, first thing in the morning, that is. So anyway, I've got a pomegranate white tea. So that way it wasn't like needing a bunch of caffeine. However, trying to stay hydrated, but a little bit of warmth, a little bit of sweet. So anyway, that's what's in my glass.
That sounds really, really good.
Yeah, good at Trader Joe's. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, favorite spot.
I need to start drinking more tea. I got to work on it. I really want to like it.
I'm not big on, I don't love like some of the herbal teas, but then some of the dark teas don't really settle well in my stomach. So I've kind of like a in between. It can't be too light, but not too dark, kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I had a patient give me something called medicine ball from Starbucks, and it's like tea with like mint or something. It's so good, and I love it. And I'm not a big tea drinker.
Nice. Yeah,
so
that's fantastic.
If you're ever at Starbucks, medicine ball.
I love it. I love it. So Dr. Bobbie, what's in your glass?
I am having some kombucha. Just some gingerberry kombucha. Yes, I love it. It's so good. It's kind of my afternoon drink that I try to have. So
I love it. Very cool. Well, as everybody knows, we are in the month of May, which in the national narrative is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are trying to continue in with that narrative and have conversations regarding more of like that mental well-being, plus just awareness of mental health in general. And what can we do to help ourselves be more aware, but then also be more aware with other people in our lives. So just kind of like that mindfulness of being in this subject and figuring out where do we fit in, but then where do we fit in the greater spectrum of interpersonal relationships and within societal roles that we have. So where we're going to start today is maybe Dr. Bobbie and I can talk about where we struggle. And that way it's something that is relatable to everybody because we have our own struggles. And we work with individuals on a day-to-day basis that also have struggles. And so we can talk a little bit about what we do to try and be mindful in that situation and helpful. So Dr. Bobbie, currently, what are some of your struggles as far as your overall mental well-being?
I think for me is right now is having so many goals and having so many things I want to do and I want to be successful at, and struggling with the fact that you can't do it all. I think that is big, and that as I try, there's so many people say, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep up. I don't know how you do all this. And there's a part of me that's like, well, I just kind of got to. But then at the same time, it makes me think, well, am I doing too much? Am I trying to do too much? Like, would I be happier if I kind of slowed down, if it took a little bit longer? But there's that whole mental battlefield of like being strong versus getting it done versus taking that time for yourself. And it's kind of like hard to kind of like decipher all of those things that are going on in your head. Which ones are real, which ones are true feelings, which ones are me telling myself I should, instead of this is what I really need.
Correct. Yeah. I think what I need, right? So I think that's kind of what Erin was touching on last week, is figuring out what our needs are, which is actually harder than you would think. Because that's because I do this in our financial health in our household, right? What are our wants? What are our needs? And really being honest about that, because they're not the
our
same.
Wants are actually like we categorize them as needs.
Yeah, but they're really wants. So like it's something that we like, it's helped our financial health in our household, but then kind of separating that out into our mental health awareness, I think is really important, because sometimes I think it's the opposite is true for mental health. For what we do with our finances, it's very easy to make something seem a need because because it's a real want, and then we end up spending too much on things.
Yes.
But then when it comes to mental health, things that are true needs, we perceive as wants. And then we don't give them the effort and time, at least I don't, until I actually sit down and delve into it, to give it the time and energy that it truly does deserve. I don't know if you feel the same.
Well, I was gonna say, and I think another thing, like, so that's a great comparison, is the financial versus like that mental health. And financial, it's easy for me because I only have so much income. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you have this number and you got to figure it out. And that number, I mean, it can change, but it does, for the most part, it doesn't change. Whereas
Right.
your mental health, you're like, oh, I could just squeeze this in here. I could squeeze this in here. Like you're always finding ways, like that time is not as tangible as the income.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel as tangible. And I think that's what makes a larger difference. But I think there's ways that we can make it feel more tangible, right? So that's like one of my strategies is I say it out loud. And then for me, as soon as I say something out loud, then it's almost like I'm not a big journaler. That doesn't work well for me.
Mhm.
But like as I go through that process, now it's almost like, well, now that it's out there, oh, now we're gonna have to figure this out. Versus if I don't say it out loud, then it kind of holds in, and then I don't give the attention, and it kind of stays out here. And this like it's constantly kind of coming at you, but you're trying to like put up your blinders. Like if I don't say it, if I don't look at it, it's not there, but it is there, and it's
I
just
also think there's
not
some
good coping.
like, right. No, I think there's some like free, because how many times, at least for me, and I won't speak for you, but how many times am
Yeah.
I frustrated about something, mad about something, worked up about something? And if I just have that conversation, or like for you, I remember in grad school, how many times I just like be bawling, like, I can't do it anymore, Jess. And
Yeah.
like the next morning I wake up feeling great because I just
Right.
finally like let everything
You
go.
let it out. Right.
Yes. And
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
all of a sudden someone knows that I'm not okay, or someone
Right.
knows that I'm struggling. And I don't even want to say not okay, but someone knows I'm struggling with something. Like life isn't
Exactly.
perfect.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So no, I think those are all very real, like very real things that are going on. And I think I'm probably in a very similar place where it's like
Mhm.
you've got all of these, so we have these goals because we're at this point in our life where it's like, we're not at retirement age, we're in this, like we're actively working on trying to achieve success within your career, which whatever that might be, but then in your life too, like we've got all these like personal goals in our life where we want to be, financial goals in our life where we want to be, and strategies to get all of that done while still staying present in the moment. That like,
And it doesn't
how do
have to
you
be
just
bad.
enjoy
Like
the, yeah,
right
yeah,
now it's all such good stuff, but it's
it is.
still too
It's a
much.
lot. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a lot of great things going on. So it's not like bad stuff's going on and I'm feeling
No,
over. It's like great stuff.
right.
So
Yeah, no,
how
I
about
think,
you?
yeah, I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's very similar of that constant, um, especially like, so, being a parent, it's like every new with being a parent, like every, like, I've never had a child this age before because they're my oldest, right? So it's like
Mhm.
every new step in that, you're constantly wanting to make sure, like, am I doing everything right? Am I making sure I'm setting them up for success, but not being a helicopter parent and not letting them have their own struggles and go work through those struggles, but have, just making sure that we're creating this well-rounded environment so they have the space to grow into it. Again, creating boundaries, but not helicopter, so it's like constantly
Yeah.
working on this, but I've never done this before, right? Like you're just learning as you go, at the same time of trying to, sustain a marriage, right? And make sure that we're constantly growing together in a marriage. which is it's not, people say marriage takes work. Of course it does, but it's mindfulness of like, how can I be present in the day, but then still make sure that the two of us are growing together. But then work-wise, making sure that I'm present and aware with my patients, but then also able to cut that off too and let that go. So it's like each of these roles, I'm constantly having to like kind of turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, like walk into work and I have to like turn off mom mode and turn on work mode because my brain is completely different in the two. But then turn off work mode when I get home and not, be present to a spouse, but then to kids, right? It's two different types of
Right.
presence. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And then you've
it
got
does.
friends, and then you've got other family, and it's just trying, like, I think that's my constant struggle is making sure that I'm aware of where I am and present to be receptive, but then to give in an appropriate manner so that it's a meaningful engagement. And
Yes.
so that's like, it's been like something I'm like actively, especially like with bringing, like I really, really made it a goal when I first brought our youngest or our oldest into the world of like, this is a major goal of mine because I have a tendency to get super work focused. I'm really good at task completion and, like making sure it gets done and, pushing our goals forward. And that's like something that I can get a little bit too intense into that. And I wouldn't shut it off as much. And my husband would be like, hey, are you home? Or, hey, I'm in front of you. And I'm like, oh, I'm
Cool.
sorry. Did you say something? I'm sorry.
And it's
I
also
was
like
off
turning
thinking
off
about
that
something else.
guilt of like
Yeah,
actually being able to enjoy that time and not be thinking about the 1,000 things you should be doing, or
exactly.
I should
Yep.
rephrase that as you feel or you think you should be
Right.
doing,
Right.
instead of that.
For sure. Yeah. Cause
Enjoying
then
it.
the guilt just turns into this like self-defeating mind talk, right? Of like, well, you're not good enough here, you're not good enough there, whatever it might be. And so some strategies that I've been implementing and trying to implement and constantly working on implementing are triaging the situation, right? So I'm going to one, I have to work on my transitions. So,
Mhm.
once I do kiddo drop off, then I'm driving to work. And actually, I don't actually listen to the radio at all, right? I just, what I'm doing is when I'm driving them to school or, drop off, my conversation is towards them of like, what are you looking forward to in your day? And, all that, what to expect and who's going to do pickup and, just kind of preparing them for the day and all that. So then once
Mhm.
that's done, then I turn that off and I'm like, okay, then I'm like mentally, I prepare my day. I think, okay, so I'm gonna come in, who's the staff I'm expecting to see, what's the first patient, do I have meetings through lunch, and I'm just kind of mentally walking myself through my day so that I'm not walking into like, oh, let's see what it is. So then when I
Right.
come in the door, I'm making sure that I'm seeing everybody I'm supposed to be seeing, has somebody called out, like what's going on,
Oh,
that kind of
fun.
stuff. So I'm like, my full checklist of like, I need to say good morning to X, Y, and Z, make sure that we're set up for the day, my first patient, what are my meetings at lunch, end of the day. So then I double check the schedule. Sure enough, it matches what I thought it was, or no, it doesn't match. What
Right.
kind of modifications do we need to make? And then I essentially like kind of seeing it all the way through at the beginning of my day now helps me know what to expect. It doesn't feel like something's just
Mhm.
happening that I don't know. And so that helps me to like kind of get through that day and be more present in the moment because I kind of know what to expect. I know what's coming up. So, and then I do the same thing when we do kiddo
I
pickup.
run through it.
I do the same thing for them that helps me. We do pickup. I'm like, hey, here's what to expect. We're going to go home. We're going to get in the stroller, we'll go for a run, that X, Y, or Z. The way you're going to earn a sweet treat is by eating all of your dinner, So I try and
Right.
implement the same strategies to them. And then it seems helpful, right? We have much less
Mhm. Yeah.
behavior and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, one, I've worked on my transitions and preparing for my day and being present in my role. And it's been super, super helpful. It's something that I have to actively work on every single day, though. Otherwise, I end up into this like, where am I? I'm too focused on something else. I'm distracted. I can tell I'm not connecting well. I'm like, that was me. I didn't prepare in advance. And now I'm feeling like, hold on, so
Yeah.
then they start feeling more overwhelmed and all of that. So those are just some of the strategies that I've been really trying to be consistent with. So what kind of strategies have you tried?
So for me, I think where I am in life right now is like that. The biggest thing I struggle with is the overwhelming feeling of
Mm-hmm.
so much to do and not enough time, not just physically not time. So what I kind of do is I tell myself, all right, stop. And I literally go, what is one thing I can do right now? Like, what is like the one thing? Just focus on that one thing. What needs to be done right now? Now, every weekend on Sundays, I plan out my entire week and I have my whole calendar and it's, I have all
Yep.
that. But when I find myself in the moment, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do right now? Like this second, what can I accomplish to help myself? And then
Mm-hmm.
I find that once I just focus on one thing instead of the hundreds of things, I can be clearer and then I get that one thing done. And it's like, okay, what next one thing? And it's like almost looking at that, the quote, oh gosh, like you can't run a marathon, like running, you got to start walking to run a marathon,
Right.
like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
look at mile 26 when you haven't even taken the first step. So
And
I
that's
think
what our
that's like
brains
really
do.
been, yeah, I think that's been
Yeah.
really helpful for me lately. And it's honestly like, sometimes I think if you try too many different things, it doesn't work.
Right.
So that's really what I've focused on is like just when I'm feeling overwhelmed, accomplish one thing. So
For sure.
that's kind of a big strategy that I've used for me.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the other thing that you kind of mentioned was like you've got kind of like that longer term strategy, and then you've got a more in the moment strategy. So I think
mhm.
that's super helpful is the because we do the same thing on Sundays. We do our meal prep. We kind of get as much done and ready and organized for the week. I do the same thing. I've got a calendar and I'll review the calendar for the week and just get that big picture overview of what do we have going on and what can we do now to make that
Right.
easier, so
Right.
that way when you're in the moment there's less chaos.
Yes.
Always
Yes.
chaos.
There is always
Always.
going to be chaos. It is always, oh my goodness. So many times
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know for you, but in the clinic inside, um, so I'll say one of the best comments is so many people will be like, I don't know how you handle all these people. Like, I don't know how you keep your head straight. You always know what you're doing. You know what you want. Da, 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 da. And I just sit there and smile because inside my head, I'm like, I'm going crazy. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? And I'm like, inside, I feel like that. But apparently I can do a pretty decent job of not showing that. But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that's not the chaos going inside my head.
Right. Exactly.
Just
And there's
kind of
just so many moving pieces. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Um,
So as far as like other topics of conversation, what are
mhm.
some, from your perspective, what are some stigmas that you feel like that we fall into, maybe as healthcare providers, or just even in our personal lives? Like what have you noticed?
Um, so oh gosh. So there's so many like different things that you can fall into. So some that like we as healthcare providers fall into is so my patient population is a lot of workers' compensation. And they have seen doctors, they've seen other people, they're being kind of thrown through the ringer. So I get for them, like I get a lot of stigma of like healthcare doesn't care about me. And so I have to become that person that shows them, no, we really do. Like, I really want you to get better. Things like that. I think we already talked about personal life is just having it all together and
Yeah.
that picture perfect. Facebook, Instagram, everything's perfect. And it couldn't be more far from the truth than it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then, how about you? What
Yeah.
do you see kind of both in just healthcare in general, and anything else in your personal life?
Yeah, I think as like a healthcare provider, I think sometimes we fall it depends on, like in general in healthcare, I think that's right. Of people get a little bit guarded and think that you're not, you're just there to like earn a paycheck, and how do you really care about me as an individual? And, trying to constantly break that stigma is something I try and do at least on the first visit, right away. And
Yeah.
try and make sure they understand that that's, if I wanted to make like a crap ton of money, I just would have gone into finance or something, and it would have been,
Right.
I could have got my schooling done faster and made more money. So,
And
I mean,
probably
the real answer is this is not where I'm, you know, like just know that, right? So I
Right.
just try to be honest with them, and say that.
Right.
But then I think the other stigma is that, especially sometimes, I think what happens more just from, just being a female, is that people want you to walk around with a smile on your face all the time, of like, hi, I'm so happy to see you all the time, and
Yeah.
that if you're walking around with a serious face because you're thinking or focused or whatever it might be, that, and not that you're frowning or rah, 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 but you're like focused,
Right.
that it's like, well, what's wrong with you? I'm sorry, what's wrong with me? I didn't, like, do I look ill? I don't, what do you mean? What's wrong? Well, you're not smiling. Oh, what, like, am I supposed to have a permanent smile? I guess, do you know what wrinkles would happen with that, by the way? No, I'm just kidding. Now I got the collagen in my coffee because I'm supposed to smile all the
Right.
time.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
no, like, smiling is an emotion. Smiling is in the moment. I'm happy and I'm smiling, right? I'm whatever it might be.
Mhm.
But like, if I'm just at rest thinking, I'm not thinking and smiling, that's,
Right.
so there's like this sense of like, if I'm focused, that's like wrong of me. And it's taken me a little bit to realize that, like, it's not wrong. I can be focused. I don't have to be smiling to like really appease you, right? Like somehow you're
Right.
uncomfortable, So I think
Well,
that's
just
something
because
that,
someone's not
like,
smiling doesn't mean something's wrong.
right, it's not like you're frowning or like, something's wrong.
No.
It's like you're
Right.
just focused. And so I think there's just like a sense of making sure that, especially like as a female that's a professional, is owning that and saying that, there's times where I've got a lot of things that I'm trying to keep organized and focused and staffed or trained, or a treatment plan that we're putting together, or whatever it might be. And there's a lot of moving pieces that we're trying to get together into a coordinated manner in a short period of time, because we don't have a lot of time to get this done because there's always another patient coming. And, so there's times where we just have to be in that really serious mental space. And that's not wrong. So, and I used to be like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'd be like, I would almost like apologize for it. But now it's like, don't hold that, like, just like let it go, don't hold it.
Mhm.
And still be respectful and honest, but yeah, there's times where our energy is going to reflect off onto somebody else and not a good way. And I really try and be as aware of that as possible, because if I'm really stressed of like, hey, how are you, what's going on, like, how's your pain going, they're gonna be like, oh, I want to say better because
Right.
you
Right.
seem crazy,
You bombarded me.
right. So I don't want that energy to come off. And so, that's where you kind of have to check that. But at the same time, I don't want to apologize for um, something that, I don't necessarily need to apologize for. So it's just kind of trying to like find these stigmas, and at what point in time is this a good judgment, or a helpful judgment, or a non-helpful judgment, and constantly trying to like triage that in a situation is something that is, something that I've had to work on over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so my question for you then is, we are not mental health counselors, we are not mental health specialists, but mental health is a huge part of every patient we see.
Right.
And it is, I think it's really important because a lot of times, what you believe in is what will help you get better. So if
Yep.
you are feeling really down and not feeling like you're ever going to get better, it's going to make that whole process a little bit harder.
Right.
So what do you do with your patients to help that aspect of it outside of, like, I know obviously we have the referral to a counselor or someone like that, but like in clinic, like how do you help your patients?
I always call it naming the elephant in the room. So we all know it, but nobody wants to say it. So I say it out loud so that we can touch it. Because if we can say it out loud, now it's tangible. And and there's all sorts of different reasons of why people are fearful of intervention, or where in their current state of function is how we refer to it in physical therapy. So maybe they're having a hard time getting back into work related activities or home related activities or whatever it might be, which creates a lot of change in their role in life. And that then creates this whole cascade of events that happen mentally. And so when we're treating pain, all of this other stuff is going on at the same time. And so I like to just say, okay, let's say it out loud. So if you're feeling like something is harmful, like we do an exercise and you can tell that they're like, that hurt me, or something like it's harming, like, all right, that's great. Let's say something like that out loud. Now let's dissect that. So I want us to understand what a bridge is, for example, and how would that actually create harm, and what mechanism of harm would happen from that. And so we just kind of take whatever it is, take the emotion around it, and then dissect it down so that the person can then start to kind of have that belief system of, this is actually not harmful, this is helpful. But in the past, what's happened is that movement has equaled harm, right? So it might have been a slip and fall, some sort of injury, a car accident, who knows, right? But somehow movement created harm. Now I'm asking you to move and your brain is going, this is in the harm category. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But wait a minute, yes, it does, because it's movement. So the greater whole of movement has equaled harm in the brain. So see what I mean? So then I try and like separate that out and bring that logical mind back in, because the emotional mind has taken over. And so we've got to have the logical mind plus the emotional mind in order to have a balanced treatment plan moving forward. So when we can't get that logical mind to come in and balance the emotional mind, and the emotional mind is just like too loud, and it doesn't matter what I'm trying to do from a logical standpoint of getting the understanding, that's when I'm like, okay, at this point in time, it's not that I'm discharging and saying PT is not going to work for you, you're crazy. No, that's not the case. But the case is, this is when we bring in another provider. So this is when we refer to mental health counseling, because we've got to really get a good grasp of this emotional mind. There could be PTSD associated with an accident or the trauma that they went through that is not being treated. And so we've got to get that treated in order for us to then get this movement piece or whatever it might be back. So I just say it out loud, and then we work together. The patient helps give the ideas for what's going to work. I can't tell you what's going to work, right? I can give you suggestions, but then I want you to give suggestions too, because that's getting the logical mind to come back into it. So those are the strategies that I typically use.
Nice. And I think that all of that is awesome. And I think it's super important. I love how you call it naming the elephant.
It's just uncomfortable. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think we talked last time about like just that release and saying stuff sometimes, Oh no, earlier we just, sometimes admitting or saying it helps you understand it a little bit, or helps it kind of leave your body a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think oftentimes people feel crazy. They're like, you think I'm crazy. I'm like, I'm sorry if you feel like I have made that kind of inference, but I don't think you're crazy. If I thought you were crazy, I would have discharged you. I wouldn't be wasting your time. This is normal with pain, that we have an emotional response. Pain isn't just a standalone. There's an emotional response to it. There has to be, right? It's not that simple. So then we start to kind of delve into it. And I call it like putting your finger on it. You can poke it, you can touch it, you can pick it up, you can throw it. So then once we can get the concept and really kind of grasp it, Now we can work together on making the strategies for whatever that individual is going to work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we do have to refer on and say, okay, maybe we do need to take a break. Maybe we, and then come back to this in a little bit. Maybe I treat concurrently with mental health. It just depends on where we are. But almost every single patient, there's an aspect of naming the elephant in the room, because nobody's going to say out of the gate without being poked a little bit truly how they're feeling about the situation, because typically we're not in an environment where that's a safe place to talk. Typically it's stay in your lane, don't talk to me about X, Y, or Z. I only want to hear about this. I only have 5 minutes left. I've got this little, prescription pad that I'm going to send something to you.
Right.
We don't have a space where somebody's asking like, how are you feeling with this? Like, how is this going? Is this like helpful to you, or is this not helpful? They're like, what do you mean? Just give it to me, I'll do it. Like, no. Like, is this helpful? Like, when you implement this, do you find it helpful at home? And if not, why? Because the why is what we need to figure out to give you something better to do. Or maybe we need to really understand why it could be helpful. Maybe we don't have the buy-in. So yeah. So it's just, yeah.
I would say I find you the buy-in, like I find the more I explain and show pictures and help them understand what that pain is, it doesn't take the pain away, the pain's still there, but it's like, okay, I think sometimes when, and we're talking about pain specifically here, but sometimes when you have this pain, you have zero idea what it could be. Your brain starts like exploding with all these bad things. And then as you start to understand a little bit, it like comes down to, it's like, okay, this is manageable. Okay, this is something I can do about it. I can help myself in these areas.
Yeah. And then we use your strategy of, I need one win, right? I need one win. And then once you get the one win, then you can get another one, and then another one, and then another one. But it's like, I can't get out of bed because it's hurting so much. How do I get back to lifting 50 pounds or whatever it is? That feels so far away that it's like overwhelming. And when we can really implement some of these same strategies with patients of saying like, oh, well, what if we had just one? And then celebrate the win. Celebrate that we had the win, because that's where we really start seeing the success and we get that snowball rolling. So we do it for our own selves, right? As providers, as individuals, but then if we can also use that to implement into patient care, then we can help our patients actually start to see better results with their recovery within physical therapy, but then also start to like teach this awareness of mindset and how it actually can help in other areas. You just apply the same exact strategies to other areas. And it's like, it's pretty cool, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun to see. It's fun to see patients have those successes.
Oh, for sure. That's why we do what we do, right?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Exactly why we do what we do. Kind of see that, like anybody sitting in one of our offices isn't there because everything is perfect. Okay. That's not why they're there. They're there because something isn't going well. And that's what I explain when I do, training for any of the employees in our company, is the reason why everybody is in that waiting room is because something in life isn't going well. So as long as we can treat everybody with respect, then we're all going to have this appreciation for what our roles are here, right? And so we're all here to be supportive, not only of each other, to have a positive work environment, but then be supportive of the person that's sitting out there. You don't have to know what's going on, but you can know that something's not going well. So just like greet somebody with kindness and respect.
And
hey,
honestly,
it is so nice to see you.
They don't even want to be there, especially in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like something's wrong. We're taking time out of their day. They have so much, just like us. They have their to-do list to do. And they're just like, oh, and then a lot of times I have a lot of awesome patients that eventually love it and love coming because they get the benefit of it. But man, those first few times, what am I doing here?
Exactly.
Is this really gonna help me?
Is this going to help me? This is costing time. This is costing money. This is cost. Where you got to kind of say, okay, well, this is what the benefit's going to be, though. Potential benefit, right? We can't make any promises. I don't have a crystal ball to say what's going to happen next, but likely, right? Likely potential is, is there. So So yeah. Perfect. Well, I think hopefully this was helpful to kind of delve a little bit further into mental health awareness, how Dr. Bobbie and I ourselves struggle, but then strategies that we use to help with that. But then how we try and incorporate it into our practice as well with our inner, personal relationships with patients, and see if it's something that could be hopefully helpful for others listening to kind of help to find ways that they can implement maybe some of these strategies into personal lives and then interpersonal relationships as well. So stay tuned, because next week we are going to be interviewing another mental health counselor who has some really great strategies for kind of reframing our thinking. And I love some of these strategies. They're really, really good. And
I'm excited because I have heard like a glimpse of it one time, and I'm really excited because I truly haven't heard this view at all. Like I haven't been taught it, so I'm excited.
Yes. So I'm pretty pumped about the next episode as well. And then we'll go into, obviously we'll have one more episode in May, and then we'll move on to the next month. So our challenge this week is going to be to implement one of these strategies throughout the week. So it might be planning in advance. It might be in the moment, triaging the situation to get a small win when things are feeling overwhelmed and stressful. It might mean, in a respectful way, naming the elephant in the room when it needs to be named in order to move forward. Any of the strategies that we've been talking about, just try and implement it and see if you find it helpful. So, and then we'll continue to move on and grow and learn together. All right.
All right. Well, I look forward to next week. I hope you guys have an awesome week, and we will see you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.